Hey everybody, welcome to Woo². This is Colette Baron-Reid and we are inside the Wooniverse. We are still inside the Wooniverse. I'm here with my producer. I call you executive producer because that is your job title, Connie
It's on
Diletti.
paper.
Hey. And we are talking about different subjects. Basically, anything goes. Mostly, we answer your questions that come in to our inbox that tell us what to talk about. So, Connie, what is on tap today?
Today is a question we've received a lot of questions on. You've
Yeah.
mentioned this before in some videos, and the question is, what is a God box? And
Woohoo.
then what is it for?
Oh my goodness. I love my God box. Okay. So, what is a God box? This is something I learned 37 years ago. And it can be called anything. So, it is an actual box. Let's just go there.
Okay.
This is a box, a
Okay.
real box,
Mhm.
or it is an ornamental box. It can be a cardboard box. It can be a
Okay.
small. Typically, it's a smaller. It's not a giant box. It's a manageable box.
Mhm.
And or I have like a kind of like a box, beautiful beehive that I open up. That's a box, right? So it's something
Mhm.
you can put something in with a lid. How's that? Like a
Mhm.
pot, right? So it's
Okay.
a
Okay.
right, and it's a container. So how about that? So its metaphor is that you are choosing this box as a sacred container. So you're kind of indoctrinating yourself into, the dynamic relationship with
Mhm.
God with
Mhm.
what you put in the box. So I call it a God box. I've called it other things, spirit box, like a wish box, prayer
Okay.
box, right? Where
Mhm.
you write letters to God. And
Okay.
what we do is we put our intentions in the box. So we write out our intentions at the beginning of the year. My husband and I do this together. We actually still have to do ours. We take them all out from the year before and see what we see.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Mm.
so they're really about your intentions that you surrender to God. So it could be called a surrender box if you don't want to have a
Mm.
God box. You know what I mean? And
Mhm.
so you're surrendering it to the universe or to God or to your, Holy Spirit, divine matrix, whatever you want to call it. You are surrendering your needs, your intentions, your desires. Boom. So you're saying, I intend this, I desire this, I want this, I want to contribute this, but I'm putting it in this God box. I'm going to close the lid because I say, I surrender this to you, right? So to do with as you will. And then we see what happens a year later. Then you open the box a year later, and then you see, and you're usually severely freaked out because in some form, it's kind of similar to a vision board, only it's just, it's a box. You'll see what actually happened that relates to the things you put in the box.
So can you backtrack just a bit in that so the God box is an actual box, a container.
And it's like a
And then
ritual.
and it's a ritual. You designate it to be a sacred
Yeah.
space where this is your connection, communication with God.
Yeah.
And are you using tiny pieces of paper? Are you writing massive letters? Like how
No,
do you phrase things?
I'm
Okay.
using small pieces of paper,
Okay.
and then I roll them up in a ball and I throw it in. Yeah,
Okay.
and sometimes
Okay.
I also can't figure something out, like, I can't figure out, you know, how do I make peace with this person, and, like,
Okay.
even if it's like I'm still struggling about so and so, you know, I
Mhm.
need an intervention from you. I can't do it. You can, so I'm gonna let you. Right? Because like, let go the branch. Like, right?
Yeah.
It's like,
Mhm.
like your claw marks are on something. I know, I have to know how to do it. No, guess what?
Mhm.
You might not know. So give it to God. Say, like, you know what? I can't do this. I'm going to surrender my will and my life over to the care of God as I understand God. And in the box it goes. And then
Mhm.
you just close the lid. And it's an action of surrender. So it's an actual ritual action of sacred surrender where you're writing things down and plunking
Mhm.
it in there.
And once you plunk it in there, you are not going back into the box and
No,
looking like anytime would you suggest not anytime sooner than a year?
I like a year. That's
Okay.
what I've always do it
Okay.
once a year. I've done a God box literally for 37 years. I have had 37 God boxes,
Wow.
20 with my
Wow.
husband because we've done one
Mm.
together for 20
Mhm.
years, 20 of those years. Yeah.
And do you
It's
use a new
fun.
box every year?
No, we have the
No,
same
okay.
one. We bought
Okay.
this beautiful, like It's a
Much like a
ceramic, like a
beehive?
beehive, right? It's just
Cool.
gorgeous. And
Yeah.
then it has a lid. It's ceramic inside. It's like all
Mhm.
gold, and we just put it in there and we close the lid.
Okay.
And it's
And
decorative, so it sits on our living room table all the time.
so do you have any examples of something that you saw a year later that
Yes,
was
our
yes,
house.
please, let's hear it.
Our
Okay.
house. So our house. So Mark and I were living in Westport, Connecticut. I'd had a TV show of which you were my producer.
Mhm.
Remember?
Yes, I remember.
Do you remember that
Mhm.
show? Yeah,
Yeah.
we were living in the U.S., but I had a TV show in Canada. You were the producer,
Yes.
and that's how you came here.
That's how we met. Yes.
Yeah. So I actually didn't put a TV show in the box, which was interesting. But we were looking for a house. So Mark and I, we kept saying that we were in the house before the house, and
Mm.
because we never felt like it was our forever home, right? So I said, like, just for fun, let's do an exercise about our forever home.
Mhm.
I knew what I wrote. So I wrote all these details about the house. But first I prayed, I meditated, and I saw it. So I'm like,
Mhm.
oh, that's wild. Okay. I wouldn't have thought of that, but let's put it down. So, so I put all these details, and I'm not going to say what the details are, but
Mhm.
they are details.
Mhm.
And then Mark put his details down. And his details were wild. And we talked about it though. I'm like, this would be our perfect, let's pretend we were like writing about our perfect home, right?
Mhm.
What would it be if we could have visualized it together? And he put something down. I'll just say what his was. His was a Frank Lloyd Wright architectural build. Now
Okay.
we were living in Connecticut. That's where,
Mhm.
Frank Lloyd Wright houses were like, but they were
Yeah.
they were so expensive. It's like I
Mhm.
cannot sell enough Oracle cards for that. Okay, right? So,
Fair
so
enough.
it is highly unlikely that we are going to get a house like that. But why not? That was what he wanted. He put it
Mhm.
down. So all I will say is that 3 weeks later, not a year, not a year,
Mm.
3 weeks later, and it went into the box. A phone call came, and to my specifications was which would be, I'll leave some of mine, and exactly 1.5 hours outside of city, exactly a farm, and exactly with a
Wow.
well. I wanted a
Mhm.
well and a farm, but
Mhm.
that it had to be an hour and a half outside of the city because in the middle of nowhere. That's what I wanted.
Mhm.
Um, it was a Frank Lloyd Wright architectural copy. It was a copy.
Pretty close.
I was
Pretty
like,
close.
okay, that's
Yeah.
close enough.
Yeah. Mhm.
So it was just uncanny. Like we didn't have to
Yeah.
wait a year, but we really surrendered it. And I didn't believe, I'll be honest. I know people say you're going to see what you believe. I was just like, I'm giving it to God and whatever you come up with, but let's do it. Let's actually do that and surrender it. And
Mhm.
3 weeks later, the phone came and we had to move to another country.
So you can in tandem work with a God box and a vision board because we're coming
I
off of
work with
your
all of
vision
it.
board challenge, right?
Honey, I'm the
S
woo-woo
Yeah.
queen when it comes to
Yes.
these things. Like, and plus I love it. It's
Mm.
artistic
Mhm.
and it's an action because I like to hold on to things and think I know
Yeah.
better often and think, so it's for me, it's a practice
Yeah.
of surrender
Mhm.
is the God box. But it was pretty crazy because we pulled it all out of the God box. I'm Mark, let's pull out those things. Look.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And you have so for anyone listening today, a God box is almost like, would you say it's kind of like if you've made a vision board, that the God box is you can also speak to some things on the vision board in the God box,
Oh
but
yeah.
as
An
time goes
adjunct of the
on,
vision board.
yeah, like an adjunct, but also to life, generally speaking, when you need help or when you need guidance or you desire something, you have some inspiration, looking for clarity. Like literally, it's kind of a catch all to,
Yeah, and it's not
yeah.
always going to manifest that way either, right? So, like you want to maybe you have visions that you're going to be an author with a New York Times bestseller, right? I mean, I never got a New York Times bestseller, but the year that I put New York Times bestseller in my God box, I was a number one bestseller of the book The Map
Hmm.
for 5 or 6 days. I took photographs of it. I never got New York Times, but it was number one bestseller,
Yes. Yeah.
but not New
Hmm.
York Times. So that was
Hmm.
good enough for me. Thank you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I
You
will always
accepted
have
that.
those
Thank you.
pictures.
Yes.
Yes, I
Yeah.
accept that. And often most of my Oracle cards got to number one for,
Hmm.
for a few days. Well, it doesn't matter anymore. Like I don't have that kind of need for those things today.
Hmm.
It's like
Hmm.
would be great. It's like, but it's not necessary. I have
Mm.
a great life. I don't have to have those things
Mhm.
to make me happy or to make me feel whole or whatever. Would be nice,
Mhm.
fantastic. That means all
Mhm.
of you lot liked it, but it
Mhm.
doesn't really matter. So you get what is, and I always say too, the caveat is this or something better now manifests for me in divine appropriate timing. Thy will be done, not mine. So
Mhm.
that's what I always put. So for me, if it doesn't come, I'm okay. I've got that so down right now. Like,
Mm.
oh, well, I might be disappointed for this much. Not used to be like
Mm.
days.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
right. And now I'm like, cool, that's fine.
Could you also use this box to because there's also a, potential of making a prayer and even for someone else, like under the law of grace, if you wanna create a
Under
prayer
the
for
law of
someone.
grace, but you can't influence anyone. Like, I believe in the
Mm,
power of prayer. Like, sometimes you have, like, Lynn McTaggart has group
mhm.
intentions for people who are ill, but that
Yeah.
person is given permission. Yes,
Mhm,
you can pray for me. And then, yes, we can set intentions. Churches have prayer. We used to have a prayer board on our website a long time ago. Maybe we'll put back again. Who knows? Like, so
mhm,
you put your prayers there. You say, "Thy will be done." Look, the act of it is not as important as what happens on the other end. The
mm,
generous act, the grace that you even cared enough to do that,
mhm,
to send your energy to someone else, send this love to somebody else that I can't speak to, that kind of thing,
mhm, mhm.
you know?
That would be okay too for a God box, like
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
But you can't say, make John leave his wife for me.
right.
The, you know,
The
Dear
warning of the
God,
God
make John
box.
leave.
Yeah, what it is
she,
and what it isn't,
she
right?
doesn't love him. I
Yeah.
do. I've had that from
Mhm.
people. I'm like, that's not how we do this.
Okay.
No, you cannot influence anyone that could hurt someone else.
Mhm,
Like, this is do no harm.
mhm.
Do no harm.
Do you have any final thoughts on the God box or
Yeah, I encourage people to do it. Do it for fun. Just do it because, like, especially if you are looking for new tools. I love creative things. So if you want to get
Mhm,
creative in a way, they're beautiful. You can decorate them. You can get a shoebox. Decorate the shoebox, put a little slit on the top, put it in, like, the suggestion box,
mhm.
right?
Yeah.
And then just do it that way. I just love the tools, like the vision board. You can look at it. It's a way to keep you focused, and surrender is not easy for people. So practicing surrender by putting it in a box is really something, and knowing that God's got that.
Mhm.
I've
Love
had
it.
incredible stories with because I'm in my masterminds. I'll do a God box exercise with everybody and people a year usually because it can. Sometimes people keep it for 2 years and go
Mm,
back or they leave things in that weren't taken care of, or then they'll take it out because they don't want it anymore. Like,
mm.
right.
It's like an inventory, like when you look at it to say, "Oh, do I even am I even so aligned with this?"
And by the way,
Yeah.
too, for self healing, you know, help me heal this. Like, that's the other thing in me,
Mhm,
like, give me the courage. So help me be willing to be willing. Those kind of things
mhm,
I've written down in my God box. Give me the courage. Help me have courage. I surrender this to you. Like, fill me with courage. Like, fill me with grace.
mm.
Because that's something we're asking. We were gifted this life. Every one of us is gifted our lives. This isn't. So, what are we going to do with it?